Hi, good morning, and welcome to our SpouseLink live stream. I'm Anna Larson, SpouseLink Ambassador for Transitioning and Retiring Military Families. Today, we are going to be talking about something that I think is very important, especially during this month of the military child. Since it's April, that is the month of the military child. And so, if your family is getting ready to transition or retire from active duty service and you have a special needs child, you are going to have to think and plan ahead to make sure your child's transition happens as smoothly as possible. Transitioning military parents of special need children have many questions about what they need to be prepared for, how to find community, where to go for resources, and all of those things that are going to ensure that their child has a positive experience. My guest today, Grace Kim, is the founder and president of the board of Partners in Promise. She's also the principal attorney of her own law firm that assists active, transitioned, and retired military families in support that they need for their special needs children. She's going to tell you all about that. So, this is what she does. This is her job, her day job. This is pretty much her life. So, I'm very excited to talk to her today because today's live stream is going to offer a solid starting place for children that are school age, teenager, or adult that have special needs and that are nearing or that retirement or transitioning process from the military. So super excited about today and super excited about our conversation. If you are joining me today live, I would love to hear where you're joining me from. Drop it into the comments. Remember, these live streams are meant to be interactive. So if you have questions for Miss Kim, if you have comments that you want to share about your personal experience, I would love to hear them. Pop them in the comments so that I can share them with other people that are watching. And then finally, as you know, I'm Anna Larson, and about a year ago, my spouse transitioned out of the active duty military and to retirement. And that process was a very difficult one for my family, which has led me to SpouseLink and led me to create these live streams for families that are going through that same process and not finding the resources and support that they need. So hopefully through this live stream today, you will find resources and support that you need. And as always, you can go visit SpouseLink at spouselink.afma.com, and that will have a ton of resources for you as well. All right, I'm going to start by just introducing my guest so that I can bring her on. Let me add her bio here. So Grace Kim is the principal attorney with the law offices of Grace E. Kim, PC. Her practice is focused on special education and education law, including issues involving Individuals with Disabilities Act, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, the Americans with Disabilities Act, restraint and seclusion, school discipline, and higher education issues. That's a lot of stuff that she specializes in. Now, Ms. Kim has been working on behalf of children with special needs since 2002 as a mother of a special needs child herself. This led her to become an attorney, dedicating her practice to representing families with special needs children with legal and education-related issues. She earned her BA degree from Nyack College, her master's from Alliance Theological Seminary, and her JD degree from George Mason School of Law. Ms. Kim lectures on special education law and related topics for various local and national organizations and bar associations. She's an Air Force military spouse and the board member and co-founder of Partners in Promise, an education and advocacy nonprofit group working on behalf of special needs children who are in the military. Ms. Kim lives in Virginia with her husband, Air Force chaplain Colonel Select Joshua Kim, her daughter Karis, and her son Josiah, who is on the autism spectrum with comorbid conditions and other neurological and physical disabilities. In her free time, she enjoys running marathons, singing opera, exploring different cultures through travel, books and cuisines, and spending quality time with family and friends. Now, without further ado, I'm just going to bring on Grace and have her start the conversation. Good morning, Grace.
Good morning. Hey, Anna. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really excited.
Well, thank you so much for joining me here today. I am really excited about this conversation. Now, what people don't know is you and I have already had a conversation offline because this is not something that I am very familiar with. This is not something that my family has had as part of our military career. And so I am really out of depth when it comes to this kind of conversation, which is why I'm so grateful for experts like you that can come in and join me and really kind of help these military families that are facing these kinds of issues with what the next step is, what the path is, what options they have, all those kinds of things.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of us in our community, because we are one military, whether it's active duty, reserve, or retiree, we're one community. And for those of us in our community who have special needs or children with disabilities that interfere with their ability to communicate, to learn, to socialize, to be as involved in the community and in the school as they would like, it's an all encompassing thing. And many times we're kind of, I wouldn't say we're kind of marginalized because that makes it sound like it's done on purpose, but I think we don't want to burden other people with the struggles that we face. And what we find is when we meet other military special needs families, there's so much shared experience. There's so much that we talk about that, yes, I've gone through that. I've also experienced that. And we're not, what's the word I'm looking for? We're not alone, of course, because we're a part of a military family, but at the same time, we feel sometimes isolated. So, what Partners in Promise does is we try to elevate the voices of military families with children with special needs, whether they be educational or medical. That includes those of us who are in the Exceptional Family Member program, the EFMP program, as well as those of us whose children have disabilities such as dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia or ADHD that don't necessarily fall into that EFMP category. But those are significant disabilities that could have a pretty big impact on our children's future if we don't provide them the tools, skills, and services they need today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's such a needed area because, like you were saying, there is a large community, which is the military community, but there is a need for that smaller, like niched down community where there are special circumstances or situations that are being experienced specifically by families like yours, right? That
Mhm.
families like mine don't necessarily understand nor have a part to play necessarily in them other than as supporting and supporting that niched community in that way. So I love that Partners in Promise has done this, and we're going to share more about Partners in Promise kind of at the end. I'm going to share the resource page that you guys have because there are so many resources on Partners in Promise website that it is such a good starting place, I think, for parents, military families that have children with special needs. So, Grace, tell me now, this is your job. You wear kind of a couple of different hats, right?
Just a few.
Yeah. So you've got your Partners in Promise hat, but then you own your own law firm and you do this same thing within your law firm. So can you tell us just a little bit about what you do as Grace Kim, principal attorney?
Sure. Well, my law firm focuses on special education. I do have a lot of military clients. I have a lot of military retiree clients. There's a high number of military who retire here in Northern Virginia and in the Commonwealth of Virginia in general. And so I represent them as well as civilian. I mean, honestly, it's primarily civilian, but as much as we can, we try to provide support to our military families. What I do is I help parents through the entire process from identification, which is initial eligibility under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And I help support them throughout the process. I will even go to IEP meetings, reevaluation meetings, 504 meetings. Many times, unfortunately, I meet the parents, I meet the student because of a disciplinary issue, because a lot of the disabilities might present themselves as disciplinary, quote unquote, or behavioral or other types of technically student school rule violations, but in essence what they are is a student communicating through that behavior that they need help and support. So I meet the parent in that disciplinary really difficult time crisis for that family, and I help walk them through that, represent them through that, and if the student needs to be provided with an individualized education plan or a 504 plan, we make that happen. I also take clients to due process litigation, which is when we have to actually file a case against a school district because of a denial of a free and appropriate public education. And there's so much I can say about that. It might be a whole other show, Anna.
I'm sure there is. I mean, it just breaks my heart that it even has to meet that level at some point, right? For a child to receive what they need in terms of schooling and public education. But okay, so I guess that, I mean, really, there's not a whole lot more to say other than I feel like this really establishes your credentials in terms of being able to speak today on the special needs children and what they need, whether they're school age, teenager, or adult. You kind of run the spectrum as far as the families that you've worked with, both in your job as an attorney and as the co founder of Partners in Promise. So I just want to jump right in. I want to start with this quote that I found on your website. So I'm just going to pull it up really quick. And so this was from a school-aged family. This is in your family testimonials section. And it said, even when we quote unquote won, the new IEP goals were still written to be so low they were a disservice to my child's abilities, would have compromised my child's ability to learn to read. And I feel like this is well, first of all, very unfortunate, right? Like, just breaks my heart. But secondary, that I feel like this is something I've heard a lot from my friends and family members that do have IEPs for their children, that it never quite meets their needs. And so when you're talking to a military family that is getting ready to transition out of the military and they're looking at that final move and where they're going, and they have these school-aged children, what is it that you would say to them? What do they need to be thinking about for their child with special needs as far as this goes?
When you are planning to transition from military, full-time, active duty, or guard or reserve or whatever position you're retiring from into the civilian world, right? Or
Yeah.
back to the real world? No, no, no. Our world is very real.
Yeah.
Back to civilian life. We need to make sure that we understand what it's going to look like for our children. So step one is, what age group are your kids in? If we're talking about school age children, then we have to look at the last time our children were evaluated. That's both school evaluations as well as private evaluations. That could look like psychological testing, educational testing. If the children have some type of language or communication or articulation issues, speech language, sensory or fine motor, that would be an occupational therapy evaluation. Physical weakness or disability, that would be a PT evaluation, and whatever else might be appropriate for your child. We have to make sure that that's been done within a reasonable time. If you're like, it's been like 5 years, or the last time my 10-year-old kid was tested was back when he was 3, well, it's time to try to look at getting those evaluations done again, so that you could come into the new school district with some knowledge about what your son, what your children, sorry, it's my son, but what your child's current level of functioning and needs are with regard to their reading, writing, and math, as well as the soft skills, social skills, knowing how to be a citizen in the classroom, and then, of course, sensory processing, language processing, whatever area of deficit or need that your child might have. We need to know what that is so that we could speak with clarity and with conviction when we get to the new school district.
So you want to do it before you make any sort of transition. This is something you want to have in place. I mean, when would you start this process? Like, I don't even have any idea. How long would something like this take? Are we talking 2 years before you transition, a year before, 6 months? What would be your recommendation?
Do it within a year of transitioning. So, I mean, we all know when we plan, right? Most of us plan very long term about when
Yeah.
we're going to be getting out of the, in our case, Air Force. And I know we have our plans, right?
Right,
We're going to
right.
retire to a beach, somewhere very sunny and tropical. No.
I thought the same thing, and somehow I ended up in the middle of Texas. So you never know, right?
Hey, Texas, everyone I know from Texas, I mean, they are all about Texas.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we know where we're going for the most part. We've got the plans, we talk about them. I mean, when we're 5, 10, 15 years in, we're already talking about what we're going to do when we're 20 plus,
Yeah.
right? when we reach that point. I mean, I kind of feel like it's never going to happen personally because my husband just loves being in the Air Force a lot.
Right.
But we already have kind of in mind. So when you're making your plan, put into that calculation, whatever your calculus might be, okay, within 1 year of moving and transitioning our child to a new school, we're going to have them retested.
Okay.
And all you have to do to initiate that is say to the school district, hey, you don't have to tell them that you're PCS, well, not PCS, and you're retiring or anything personal to your family. But what you can say, and this is legitimate, is I would like to know where my child is currently functioning. And it's not clear to me where they are with regard to their psychological, educational, academic, social, whatever the area of deficit might be. I would like to know for certain where they're functioning and whether they've made adequate progress.
Mm.
And that should kick off the evaluations. Now, if the school district, for whatever reason, is being difficult and pushing back, you may need to try to avail yourself of private evaluations. Now, just as a kind of, I feel like Debbie Downer now, but when you get to the new school district, they may want to do the testing anyway, just so you're aware. Okay. But don't feel like it's wasted because I want you as the parent to be able to arrive at the new school knowing where your child is currently functioning.
Mm.
Don't wait till have someone else tell you. Okay. Don't wait till the new school who's never seen your kid before, or if they have, let's say you're moving back to a community that you've been a part of before, it's been years. Okay, children change, IEPs are reviewed, 504 plans are reviewed every year, and more if necessary.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we as parents understand where our kids are when we arrive, even if at the new school they then say, well, the way we do things here is different, and we're going to do our own testing. Okay, that's fine.
Should
Let's
that
see
be
how it lines up to the testing I already have.
Yeah. So should that be part of your planning as well? I mean, when you're getting ready to retire and transition, you figure out where you're going to go. Where is that retirement location going to be? So should you also be connecting with that school district in advance, well in advance, letting them know your child's coming, what your needs of your child might be?
Oh, Anna. Oh, Anna. You have actually brought up one of Partners and Promise's biggest areas of concern. Okay. I can't tell you how many stories that I have heard that we at Partners and Promise have experienced, that we have heard from others through our annual survey, that we've tried to connect with the school that we are planning to move into. We might even have a home there already, right? We might be, I know a lot of military families, for instance, they'll already have in mind, oh, I'm going to move back to Texas and let's start building a house, or let's purchase a place already and rent it out, through like a military by owner or whatever you might be using, so that, you have this house already set and, it's providing some income. I have a lot of friends and family who do that. Well, in that case, you even have an address, but the school district will still say, until you're physically here and show up and enroll, we're not going to help you. Because even though we have these wonderful things like the military interstate children's compact, it's MIC3. I might be misquoting what that stands for. And all the states have signed it and said, yes, we're all for military children. The problem is there's certain things that they don't make the actual school districts in their states do. And that includes this sort of advance enrollment. Even if we have active duty orders, or even if we're retiring and we're like, that's our house. This is ours.
Yeah.
They'll still say, well, until you're physically here and enrolled, we don't have to do anything for you.
Got it.
So do your best.
Yeah.
But just as a tempering of expectations. And a lot of this, I mean, there's so many, we might make, the best laid plans.
Yeah.
But when we start to put them into practice, reality doesn't always line up with what we've planned, right? We still have to make the plans though, to prepare ourselves. But part of what I'm hoping to help your listeners and your viewers understand is, even though you might try to tell the school district, we're coming, this is where we're going to live, these are the schools that we're going to be attending. they probably won't do anything. But still,
Mm,
send your kids IEP, send your evaluation so that they really don't have an excuse when you arrive to say,
yeah,
well, we didn't know, so we
right.
didn't prepare anything. No, send everything ahead of time, even if they tell you, well, that's very, well and good, but until you're here, we don't have to do anything. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, understood. But well, we do want you to know that this is where we'll be next school year.
I
So
feel like
please
that
stay
falls
safe.
yeah, I feel like that falls in line with, like, most transition or retirement advice as well. You do what you can, you do the best you can, you give as much information as you can, but you have to have plans A through Z ready to go because A probably won't work out, B might not work out, C, D, E, F, and G still might not work out. So now you're left with plan
Mm,
H, right? Where it's way down on your list of things you would have preferred to have happen, but and this is why they talk about military families being able to go with the flow, being so resilient, is because rarely does that first plan work out perfectly. In fact, honestly, I don't know that I've ever heard of that first plan working out perfectly.
Oh,
I don't know about you, but and I have a feeling that especially with the school system and school age children and IEPs and all those things that go along with that, that is a rare case where you plan it a certain way and it just magically happens like that. So,
yeah. If
yeah,
it's ever happened to anyone out there, let me know.
right?
Let us
Drop
know
it
all your secrets.
in. Let us know what school district it is because you will have a mad rush of families moving
Woo!
there,
Yes,
right?
yes. Well, one thing that I did want to bring up also, this is very important. A lot of times getting our kids' services going
Mm,
takes quite a bit of time. So, try your best, reach out to people. We all know where we're going to retire to for the most part, right? We've got our plans met. We've, gone to visit to find a place. We've done all those things. Contact, set up medical providers ahead of time. Try it if your child needs occupational therapy, speech language therapy ahead of time. There's so many resources on the internet. Just Google it or even ask other people in that community through Facebook groups, etc. Um, I mean, I'm always amazed to see how active my neighbors are on like next door apps and
yeah.
what's another one? Even Ring. We have one of those doorbells that
We do as well.
like
Yeah.
flash people. Even on that app, there's a lot of information, and people are more than happy to share. Reach out and say, "Hey, we'll be moving into the area. We're a military family that's retiring." You'll be amazed to see how many other people are like, "Hey, so we were too. We were in Army and we retired here. It's great. Here are some resources." I mean, our community like is tight. Like when we find out, oh, you served where and you were deployed when and you were stationed here, there, and do you know my cousin Bob? I mean, it's very tight, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, everybody I meet who's ever been like stationed at, Fort Bragg, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Womack,
Right. Yes. Well, and I think it speaks also to what we originally discussed, which is, find that you need to refine that community when you retire because the bigger military community is going away. Like, you're not eligible for the same services, the same programs. You won't be seeing the same kinds of doctors. You'll be on a different medical plan. So those things are all going to change. So it's super important then to refine a new community in that new place. So,
Absolutely.
okay. All right. So we're going to move on from school age children. I feel like that could be a
Mm,
topic all unto
yeah.
itself, like dealing with IEPs and all those kinds of things. So,
Woo.
I'm just going to say right now, anyone listening, reach out to Grace, reach out to Partners in Promise, go to their website, see their resources, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But okay, so let's talk about teenagers. Okay. Now I have a teenager. Teen children are their own special loveliness, right? So when we're thinking about teen children with special needs that are getting ready to transition into adulthood, and you're getting ready to transition out of the military at the same time, there has to be some extra considerations. Can you share with the people who are watching today, like what it is they really need to be thinking about?
Yes. So I've kind of walked this path a little bit. My son, Josiah Kim, is 20 years old. And he has autism, ADHD, persistent hyperplastic primary vitreous, coordination disorder, midline disorder, expressive receptive communication disorder. Oh, there's a long list. He's fantastic, though. He is the most confident kid. He was recently tested by one of a neuropsychologist in our area, Dr. William D. Ling, and he tested him when he was just entering into teenage. He was 13, 14. And so he retested him again, and he said, Miss Kim, your son does not lack for confidence. But what he does lack in is concerning because it does restrict his independence. Now, if we are of those who are very much concerned about our child going into adulthood and being able to be independent, that means more than sending my kid away to college and I'm worried. No, that means our child will be living with us for at least 10, 20, the rest of his life. And we need to make preparation for him to have his services, his own space. We need to make sure that if my child is on the Medicaid waiver, that might be your situation as well. If your child has a developmental disability, there is the DDID waiver through Medicaid. Look into it if you have not yet done so. The wait list is very long. My son has been on that wait list since he was about 14 and he's 20. So he's been on the wait list 6 years. Now that he's no longer school age, there are what we call self-directed services that he is eligible for under Medicaid, which he receives, through which Josiah is able to attend some classes at our local community college with a lot of support. And he's done really well. I mean, he's got really good grades, and I'm very happy and excited. But the question we had to ask ourselves is guardianship necessary? Now, what guardianship is, it's basically declaring an adult as incapacitated so that the adult is not seen to have capacity to be able to make decisions. That means, having their own property. That means getting married. That means driving a car. That means voting. It's basically saying that they have the status of a minor, so that anything a minor could do, your adult child could do. But anything that typically 18 and over at the age of majority, I mean, at that point, you could go out and open a bunch of credit cards and bank accounts, and it's really just protect those who are vulnerable, adults who are vulnerable to being put into those types of positions and being used and what's the word I'm looking for? Being taken advantage of.
Yeah. So you would start this process when they're a teenager then, like just evaluating and looking at your child and saying, what direction are we headed? And I'm assuming I'm going to say if you're transitioning out of the military, then you also have to be thinking of what kind of home will we need that will also support my child if there is that need for a longer term dependent living or guardianship for, their adult life, right?
And also, if your child has physical handicaps, ADA and all of that, making sure that your home is accessible. There's a lot that goes into that. And there are some resources available in those types of situations through Medicaid and through waivers and things like that, which is why we need to be as well educated as possible. But the difficulty is Medicaid is different state to state to state. So you need to know about what it is in yours and what it takes to transfer from this state into another state system.
Oh, that's maddening.
I know. It's possible though. This is where, just like we talked about earlier with sending all your kids' IEPs and 504 plans and evaluations to the receiving school for a school-age child. Tell your Medicaid case manager, we're moving. This is where we're moving to. What do I do?
Okay.
If they can't help you, contact the incoming state's Medicaid office. It is a bureaucracy, so don't expect to have,
answers like that.
Yeah. But, it's kind of that persistent widow. We keep knocking, we keep asking, we keep seeking and searching.
Yeah.
So,
is this something again that you would start that 1 year out, or would you advise a longer time frame for people who are looking at that Medicaid swap and evaluations for something like guardianship?
It's important to be aware, but typically a year out. So even for guardianship, for example, the way that you determine and figure out if guardianship is appropriate is you need to seek the advice of experts. So for us, it was Dr. Link, the licensed clinical psychologist who has conducted evaluations on Josiah. Now, when Josiah was 13 or 14, rather, he was 14, Dr. Ling said, you need to seriously consider guardianship in the future for your son. And, that was hard to hear. That was hard
Yeah.
to hear. But it was brutal, and we needed to know that it really was a possibility. So even before, I mean, if your kid is already, past that age, but, if you're wondering if your child who's on the spectrum or has intellectual disabilities, if they're going to need some additional time in the nest, or if they're not going to be able to have that level of independence that you're hoping, you need to ask those questions when they're young so that you can prepare yourselves mentally. It would have been a very rude awakening for us if we had waited until our child was 18 to think through, does he need guardianship? Because we had already had that conversation, and it's a hard conversation with his doctors, not just Dr. Ling, but all of Josiah's team of professionals. I mean, he was poked, prodded, seen by so many specialists. Yeah, he was well known. He was well known. And because we prepared ourselves mentally, when it came time to make that decision, we were happy to find that from 14 to 18, he had received the education and the services that he required so that he no longer needed guardianship. And that was a huge relief to us. So instead of guardianship for Josiah, what we did was a power of attorney. So we have a durable power of attorney over Josiah. It means that he still keeps his rights as an adult in the United States of America law courts and all of that. He could be charged with a felony. Of course, that's not even a question, but he's an adult. He can vote. He can get married, all of that. He retains those rights, but we also can support him in making those decisions and sign things on his behalf. And because Josiah is so amenable to that, that's another thing. You need to know your child. We're not worried about him. We don't need to be concerned that he's going to go out and, give his wallet and social security card and everything to some stranger on the street, which has happened to other people, because we can trust that of him. Power of attorney was right for us. But I have many clients for whom I have represented in guardianship. There's two types. There is the uncontested guardianship, which is the type that I do, the uncontested guardianship. For example, we recently did one for a client whose child is on the autistic spectrum and is nonverbal. He reads at an elementary age level, even though he is 18. And he most likely will be living with his parents for the rest of his life. And he has the mental age, or the cognitive testing has shown that he functions at the age of maybe a 9-year-old, 8-year-old. And that's not because of an intellectual disability. It's because his autism and the neurological and the biological differences that he struggles with keeps him from being able to make more progress towards maturity. In that case, it's a full guardianship. He's been declared incapacitated as an adult. He cannot vote. He cannot purchase property, cannot sign contracts, cannot marry, etc. I have another client whose child has retained the right to vote. He has retained the right to drive, to get a driver's license one day if he so chooses. He hasn't, but if he so chooses. But in all other aspects, he can't sign a contract. He can't, marry. That's something that those clients have determined to do. So you can carve out certain things. You can, but it's still a very difficult question that we need to ask ourselves. And I got to tell you, it was gut wrenching for us to go through.
Yeah,
and it may change. It may change.
Yeah, I feel like this is an ongoing conversation, right? I mean, you started at age 14 with Josiah, and the question was, it depends. You might need to look at that, right? And then then you were able to put services in place that allowed him to develop those skills he needed, where you didn't have to do guardianship. So I feel like it's almost like teenagers, or teenager ageness, is the time frame where you really have to look at what their skills, abilities are. Are there extra programs, extra supports that they could be doing or using to develop the skills? And and the other thing I just want to acknowledge is that conversation where you said it's a hard conversation to have,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that emotional and mental preparation. So when you're talking about a military family transitioning out of the military, it's already a giant mental and emotional burden. I mean, you're losing a steady paycheck, and who knows if the new job's going to work out, or even if you have a new job at that point. That final move, loss of identity, community change, loss of services that you've been using for 20 years or 5 years or however long you've been in. But you start to rely on some of those things that being part of the military community has provided, whether you recognize it or not. And every family is different. But when all of that goes away, it's a huge transition, mental, emotional burden on the family. So thinking of that in terms of then adding on top of it those questions of guardianship, my child's capabilities for independence. What do I need to be thinking long term in terms of where we move to, what kind of home we're going to be purchasing, or what kind of home we're going to move into, what our options are, right? That's a massive additional factor to lay on the doorstep of a transitioning family.
Which is why I think it's very important to get that outside view, those evaluations done. Now, if your child is still school age, you can get the school district to conduct the evaluations. If you disagree with the results of the school's evaluations, you can ask for independent educational evaluations at public expense, where the school district would have to pay for private evaluations. Now, I know in some states, school districts tend to fight those with their own due process litigation. But if you need to privately, I mean, TRICARE you can get evaluations through TRICARE. That's how Josiah was tested. He's had many evaluations in this area, Fort Belvoir and up in Maryland. I can't ever remember the name of anything. I'm so sorry. Everyone knows this hospital's up there.
That place, that
The
one,
big one, the
that
really big one.
Walter Reed, that one. Oh no,
Walter Reed. Good
look,
Lord.
I knew the answer. I'm so proud of myself.
Ah! Well,
Okay.
Josiah's been tested in those areas, and what we need to do is make a list. Okay, make a list of our child's needs according to their disabilities, and then how are they going to be addressed. So
Yeah.
if your child is going to need support with even something as basic as dressing and self-care, what are we going to put into place to make sure that when we get to the new home, that they'll have an area where we can support them in dressing and self-care. If
Yeah.
they're going to need some type of one-on-one support, and perhaps you have some support through the Medicaid program, through a waiver program where they have someone who comes in and helps your child with those things, what does that program look like in the city or state or county that you're moving to?
Yeah. So, okay. So we've already talked about guardianship a little bit and how that is appropriate for adult children. Is there anything you would add to that conversation when we're specifically talking about? I mean, let's say that right now they don't necessarily have guardianship, or maybe they have a power of attorney, whatever the family, whatever area the family's at, like in terms
Right.
of their situation, but they're getting ready to transition and they have a child that's 18 or older that does have these special needs. What do they need to be thinking about? What considerations do they have to have in place during that transition time frame, and even after, right after, that they really have to be prepared for? Because again, you're all of a sudden losing a ton of services that you've
Mhm.
been relying on, possibly. And now with an adult child, I'm going to guess it's a whole different world of navigating versus a minor child.
Well, if your adult child is in that category, for lack of a better term, then I'm guessing that they would be eligible for waiver services under Medicaid or some type of community based program. There's what we call the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services. And through that program, and it's a federally funded program, through that program, our adult children can receive training for potentially some level of independence, maybe some type of job, socialization opportunities, ability to meet with other same, I hate the word category, but same same level of functioning peers that they can maybe develop friendships with. So look into that as well in the community that you'll be moving into. It's important to identify what community resources are available to you. Because now that we're no longer in the military community, we're in the military retiree community, we're more of a part of the civilian. Look into what other groups, if your adult child is on the autism spectrum, that's the area that I'm most well aware of because of my son being autistic. Uh, if you reach into that community, they will grab hold of you and they will help you. They're one of the most supportive communities that you'll ever meet. And they can give you a wealth of information about what in that state, in that city, in that county is available. I say that we need to prepare our adults with significant challenges and disabilities for the move. I'm sure you already know that about your child. You know that they need a lot of, pre-transition preparation. So whatever that is, just make a commitment to do that. It's going to be difficult. Any transition is hard. And this is a very big transition, not just for you and your spouse and your other children, but also for that child, that adult child with special needs. And think of whatever it is that person, that child of yours needs for comfort. Make sure that's ahead of time in place. Give them something to be excited about. I know for our son, Josiah, he's very much excited and interested in all things having to do with, he likes kind of more younger teenage sorts of anime and video games like Fortnite. I think he still plays, which and Minecraft, and I am thrilled that that's what he's playing. By the way, Minecraft is great. Give them something to be excited for and to look forward to. Now, if your adult child is the type who's very low communication and nonverbal, it is still vital that they continue to receive some level of opportunity to have speech language services, communication, and those types of disorders. That's something that throughout your adult child's life, they can continue to grow in. And I can speak from, firsthand experience with our son. He was very limited in his speech and it was hard to understand what he spoke. And I'm not saying that it's crystal clear and really understandable now, but he's come so far. He's come so far to the point where a lot of people don't really know quite, what's going on there. They think he's just a normal guy. There's a little bit of an extra flavor to him, but a lot of people don't know. They don't know.
I love that term, extra flavor. That's perfect. That's so great.
Oh dear.
Well, okay. So one of the things I think this conversation this has been so good, Grace. Like, I've popped up some comments from people that have been watching on different platforms today, just the thoroughness and how much you were able to really delineate the different age groups and what to be thinking about for each one. So then we come down to, I'm going to pop this up again. I got this off your website again. This is one of the blog articles I found on Partners in Promise.
Yeah.
And it's titled, Do You See Us? And it's written by, I believe, the founder of We Are Brave Together. But the article itself was very like when I read it, I thought, wow, it really kind of hit the heartstrings, where she just talks about, she's the mother of a 17-year-old special needs child. And she says, sometimes they become invisible, that you become invisible and that they need to be seen and understood. And we need to have that voice. And just that mental and emotional strain that happens with families. And like I mentioned earlier, when you're going through that military retirement and transition, there's already such a huge burden that this is that added and extra that occurs. So I know that you say your husband will probably never retire because he loves the Air Force. I said the same thing. And then
oh, so there's hope.
There is hope. Yeah. It will eventually, whether it happens on his own or they force him out in 40 years, it'll happen at some point.
Well, in his case, they keep grabbing him back.
Okay. So when you're talking to a family that is getting ready to retire or transition, that mental and emotional preparedness, what advice would you give them in terms of that portion of just shoring up that resiliency that we're so well known for, that sometimes, honestly, I think we just sometimes just want, I want to wallow, I want to be sad, I don't want to be resilient right now, right? But anyway, what advice would you give a family going through this for that?
Well, without going too deeply into, the psychology and, who we are as humans, but we
Yeah.
were created for relationship. So even if you are a huge introvert, I encourage you to contact organizations, get involved as much as you can, even if it's just on social media. Or, now that things are opening up, we're not post COVID, I really wish we were, but things are opening up a little bit more. People are meeting again, perhaps even in person. Meet with others in our community. Even if you're, let's say you're already retired, but or you're in the path of about to, contact Partners in Promise. We are here for you. And if we can't help you, we can certainly point you in the direction of those who can. And we will do our very best to do this, because it is in community where we are kind of strengthened. That feeling of isolation, of being invisible, being alone, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the
Mhm.
more that we think we're alone, the more alone we become, because we then withdraw and we go within instead of reaching out. And what's amazing is if you reach out, our community will reach back out to you. Okay. We are very much about supporting one another because of that fear, I think, of being invisible. We want to be seen. Our children deserve to be seen. I mean, I'm
Absolutely.
telling you, my son is fabulous. He is fantastic. You ask him about how he does, he's doing great with everything. He is the best. And, he deserves to be seen. He should be seen. And so, what we do is we make sure that he has every opportunity to socialize, not just with other adults with autism, but also with regular folk on the street, wherever we go. He's interested. I mean, one of his great interests, my brother is like this Pokemon YouTube guy, Jay Kim.
Oh, yeah.
Well, my son is very much into Pokemon Go. And so, hey, there's a community day. If any of you all are into that, you know what I'm talking about. Let's go out into the community and meet other like-minded Pokemon Go playing people, who a lot of them are like middle-aged adults, which is fine, but we'll go out there and, socialize. A lot of them are also on the spectrum. So it's amazing how Pokemon Go seems to attract that. Who knows? Go figure. I guess, Pokemon's onto something with regard to the autism community. But find out your kid's interest, really. And I know we're tired, but community is what strengthens us. It's when we interact with other people that we get new ideas. That's where new ideas, and I know it sounds so corny, but like synergy, and it's a real thing. I'm coming from a background, I'm Korean American. I was born in Seoul, South Korea. I moved to the United States as a child. I have a different viewpoint, I'm sure, and a different perspective on life than you, Anna, right?
Yeah.
But then as we're talking, even our conversation in preparation for today, I feel like there was a synergy, and we were able to
Absolutely.
kind of bounce ideas off of each other to arrive at what happened just now. And
Yeah.
that's where we find our support, our life. That's where we can feel, okay, I'm feeling like I'm getting some encouragement. My soul is being fed, my bucket is getting full. And honestly, if you are in this situation, take it almost as a compliment that you were seen as somebody who could raise and love this amazing individual. That's because that you were seen as someone who could handle that.
Oh, those are beautiful words to end this live stream on. Like, I want to be like, and cut, because seriously, that's such a wonderful thought. Like, that is such a positive, wonderful thought to end on, in terms of, like, our military families. We want you to know that you are seen, you are heard. There's a community for you. There are so many organizations like Partner and Promise that are there for you. Grace clearly is your biggest cheerleader. She's chosen to do this for her day job, not just her, volunteer nonprofit foundation type of work as well. So, Grace, I want to move on and let people know how they can connect with you and how they can connect with Partners in Promise. So, can you just let them know, like, where to go, where to find you, what the best ways are?
Yes, we are very active on Facebook. So please do come join us, join our Facebook page. We're also very responsive. We're just a bunch of volunteer military spouses. We are wanting and waiting to help you. And if we can't, for whatever reason, let's say, we will put you into contact. We have a network of other military spouses who are their goal, and they feel that their mission is to support you in this transition period in your lives. And like I said, you're not alone. That self-fulfilling prophecy, that's not true. It's not true. We are here for you, and we are looking to connect with you. So please come check us out. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. I'm sure we're on all the other platforms too, but I got to be honest, I'm not on those platforms very often. But check us out on the web, thepromiseact.org, and you'll find a lot of information there that should be able to help you. I'd also like to let you know, you can fill out the contact form on my website, and I can forward your information to Partners in Promise, and you can get into contact with us in that way as well.
I know Jennifer is part of Partners in Promise as well. So she threw out this email address. So if you do want to reach out directly to Partners in Promise, go to info or send an email to info@partnersinpromise.org. Or you can fill out Grace's info and she'll forward it on.
Talk about inspirational, military spouses. Jen Barnhill, she's something else. Let me tell you.
You wear so many hats, and just as a little preview, we're actually discussing having her on next month for a totally different, unrelated conversation, but it is community focused. Anyway, I'm very excited. She definitely is inspirational. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and then I just want to make sure if anyone feels like they need the services of Grace E. Kim, principal attorney of her law firm, if this is something that you need, we have put your connection information in there as well, so that they can reach out to you directly. Now, before we go, I do want to share, this is your resources page on your Partners in Promise website. And I was telling Grace earlier that I like to do a little bit of research so I don't, so I know what I'm talking about, I guess, so I don't sound ridiculous. But I got so into this part of their website. It was like a rabbit hole for me. I found myself just sucking up information about it, things that I didn't know. And so I just want to scroll down and show you. First of all, they have this wonderful little infographic here about education, your network, self-care, documenting. But then you come down here and all of these individual things take you to yet another repository of information. So those family testimonials take you to YouTube videos and conversations and live streams that people have had. The resources blog is a big blog. The special needs resources is an entire Dropbox full of information that you can pull from, read about. It really is so thorough, and it just keeps going. Look, special education, resource partners, news articles, but what's in your binder. And just for people that might be interested in that special education binder section, it does talk about both a physical binder and, if you prefer digital, what you should be doing and how you can do a digital binder for your child's information that you're trying to keep. So highly encouraging you to go to thepromiseact.org/resources and go check out the information that they have, because it is a lot, and it is not overwhelmingly a lot. It's very well organized. So you will find yourself sucked into that rabbit hole just like I was, because there's so much great information on there.
And also, if you'd like to join our team, we would be happy to have you. If we've got a lot of really talented military spouses who support and work with us and do what it is that they do. But what you do, Anna, is also very inspirational and really exciting. And not just Anna, but anyone who's watching or listening, if you're kind of like, I'm special needs, that's me. And I've got a story to tell it to us. We would love to hear your story.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Tell them your story. Hopefully this is not hopefully. I know that today's topic is something that has helped a lot of military families. I know that this is something that's searched for and not found very often. So I'm really glad that now there is at least, one live stream out there that specifically talks about transitioning and retiring military families and special needs children, and really what you need to be thinking about through that process.
Yes. And
So
Anna, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that part of that storytelling that, we do and is the annual survey that we put out, which, you mentioned Jen earlier. She's been really instrumental in that. And that's one way that you can get your word and your story and your experiences out there, whether you're currently active duty or already retired or in the process of retiring. We still want to know what your experiences has been. And we would love to be able to see what we can do to either support or get your story out there. And maybe you guys want to join us and help
yeah.
us partner with Partners in Promise.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. So make sure you head to that, send an email to that info, just go to their website and check out what they have. I believe that your survey, the results at least, are definitely in your resources section, because I remembered seeing them. But if you would like to get on that mailing list or partner with them or collab in some fantastic way, please reach out. Clearly, this is an organization that is welcoming your support. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and get ready to say goodbye. Grace, I want to say thank you so much, both to you as Grace Kim, principal attorney, but also as the co-founder of Partners in Promise, because I think that the marriage of those two things that you are doing really has brought some great information to our military families today. Oh, look, Jennifer says the survey opens in September. Sign up for the there you
I'm
go.
so glad Jen is watching.
See? She knows. So go sign up for the newsletter to have that survey sent to you so you can be part of the conversation, and so your voice can be heard, your story can be told. And then, depending on where you are in your life, if you're ready to invest more time in something like the organization, then I think they would welcome you with open arms.
Yes, thank you.
So, yes. All right. So, thank you everybody for watching today. Now, just so you know, this is our last April live stream, but next month we're going to be just talking about mental health awareness, because it's Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes.
And the mental health impact that retirement and transition can have on military families, specifically military spouses. There's a lot out there for the service member, but not always something out there for the military spouse specifically. So we just want to say thank you for watching today. We really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I hope you reach out to Grace. Grace, thank you again, and we'll see everybody next month.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah.
Bye.